Well, greetings from Australia. My name is Aron Mercer, and I am part of the founding team at Exceptional. It's terrific to be a part of the Neurodiversity in India Summit. India is a country that I love. I've been to India a couple of times, spent many months there, have some dear friends, particularly in southern India. Neurodiversity is also a topic that I'm deeply passionate about. I myself am neurodivergent, so I have ADHD, and as a part of the founding team at Exceptional, we've built a business that connects neurodivergent people with meaningful careers. I'm going to spend a little time today talking about our experience in growing Exceptional, some of the things that candidates have told us, some of the things that employers are looking for, what COVID has changed in terms of accessibility, and then how Exceptional as an organisation has evolved and what we might be able to offer you through APAC. I'll leave my contact details at the end of this session, and if anyone wants to get in contact with us, with me personally or with Exceptional, I'll leave those details as well. So a little bit about Exceptional. So Exceptional, as I said, connects neurodivergent people with meaningful careers. And we do that through assessment of skills, training of employers, placement, coaching, a full gamut of services around getting people into work. And most of the roles that we're placing are skilled, highly skilled roles in areas like finance, administration, and technology. So we're working across the public sector, private sector, through Australia and now into New Zealand. But when we started business in 2017, we actually started off offering a software testing business as a service. And yes, not all autistic people want to work as a software tester, but we find that often their skills, particularly things like attention to detail and problem solving, are really well suited to roles that require that, for example, software testing. But really early on, we found that businesses were more interested in our talent, in how we understood potential and skill, than they were about needing software testing. So we moved quickly into being able to assess, place, and support neurodivergent people into open employment. I want to start though before I go any further, I want to really acknowledge that I'm speaking to you. Really great to be a part of the Neurodiversity in India Summit. And India is a country that is very diverse. Having travelled to a number of the different states, I noticed that there were language differences and cuisine and culture differences. Like India, Australia is actually also a very diverse country. This map that you can see with all the different colours on it is actually a map of Indigenous Australians. Australia's Indigenous people, the First Nations people, are part of a cultural heritage that goes back 60,000 years, the oldest living preserved culture on the planet. So Australia and India kind of share some of those similarities in terms of diversity. I also want to, worth noting that in India, you're already doing some amazing things around inclusion for people with, who are neurodivergent. Things like the SAP Labs program. Beyond neurodiversity, I was reading about lemon tree hotels and their employment of people with disabilities. So there's a lot that we can learn from those examples. But I want to share from our context in Australia and what we've learned over the journey. Since starting the business in 2017, we've been fortunate to be a part of a couple of really amazing programs and awards. And I put that up there not to kind of boast about what we've done, but to give you some examples of some of the programs that we've been a part of and really what we've taken from them. So two of the more significant ones are the Google Impact Challenge, which was in 2018, which was $1 million prize, which allowed us to build out a team of developers and testers who themselves were all autistic to build our assessment technology. More recently, Tech Diversity is an award for organisations that are building technology to include to improve things like accessibility. And so our assessment technology was actually recently awarded one of those awards. But if you want to find out more about us, you can go online to exceptional.io, and yeah, there's a lot of information on there. So thinking more broadly than just exceptional, we've surveyed over the last couple of years several thousand candidates in our market, and here are some of the key themes that we find out from them. So as a starting point, they want more than just technology jobs. When Exceptional started, we started with technology roles. That's what we understood, but that was also what a lot of organisations wanted. Now, it is a common misconception that everyone that's autistic, as an example, wants to go and work in tech, and we know that's not the case. Sure, a lot do, but the candidates that we speak to want roles in the creative industries, in areas like hospitality, construction, research, more broadly than just technology. And so we've been working really hard with employers to open up opportunities broader than technology. A third of the candidates that we've surveyed want to work in the office full time. I'm going to talk in a little bit about COVID and the changes to the ways we work, but it really surprised us that a third want to work full time in the office. There's now a bit of a wrestle going on between employers and employees around returning to the office. So employers are instituting things like work days in the office or team days. The other 2/3 that don't want to work in the office full time either want to work a hybrid, so a blend of in the office and at home, and then a third want to work in home all the time. They never want to step foot in an office, and so there's a real blend. And to me, that kind of goes to our philosophy of ask the person when we talk about understanding neurodivergent people and what they want in terms of employment, but also not assume. So don't assume that everyone wants to work fully remotely or fully in the office. Ask the person. Around 2/3 of our candidates want to work part-time from 15 hours a week, and that's often tied to a disability pension or a support that they might get, financial support from the government. And those work hours range from a couple of days to full time. So we're supporting people into full time leadership roles down to part time roles. And on leadership, it is as well a stereotype that individuals of the individual contributor. The candidates that we talk to, many of them want leadership opportunities. Our mission is to provide meaningful careers for neurodivergent people, and the emphasis there is on the word kind of career. And so we want people to strive high and actually aim for more than an individual contributor role for those that are interested in that. It depends on the individual. They also want the opportunity for stretch assignments, and so often internal promotions are handed out based on what other work people have done, not just their core role, but where have they stretched themselves. And there's been research that suggested that people with disabilities, people who are neurodivergent, can be overlooked for those stretch assignments because they mightn't be the first to put their hand up and ask for that. But the people that we speak to want those stretch assignments. They also want reasonable adjustments, and the ideal is that they're as commonplace as performance reviews in an organisation. So whether those reasonable adjustments are applied through the recruitment process, so at the start, or for people that are actually already in work and might need things done slightly differently. So we look at things like how people like to give and receive feedback, how they like to have tasks assigned and be able to answer questions and things like that in terms of the way they work. And so the candidates that we speak to, would love those adjustments to be commonplace and acknowledging they're not always the case. So I realise there's more things than just that, but there are a couple of, a few key things that candidates are telling us at the moment. The employers that we speak to, we're speaking to employers right through the region, and they are desperate for skilled staff in multiple industries, whether that's finance, administration, technology, we know hospitality and construction industries like that as well. They want staff that can learn quickly and stay on the job for more than 12 months. So, before COVID, if we can think back to 2019, one example, the technology industry, some results coming out, or some stats coming out of the US, about 14% turnover rate on average, and goes up and down seasonally. Some industries now are reporting 25 to 30% turnover rate. So staff are joining and they're leaving before 12 months, or they're not staying much more than 12 months. We know, and we've got evidence, that people with disclosed disability, as examples, can turn over at a much lower rate than people without. And so there's a real attraction for people that are going to come on the job, they're going to learn what needs to be done, and they're going to stay beyond 12 months. They want staff who are flexible in terms of hybrid working, and that flexibility goes both ways. So employees can ask for remote work and hybrid arrangements, but there is an expectation, a growing expectation among employers, that people are going to be available for things like team days and actually be kind of in the office sometimes. Now, that's not going to suit everyone, but from the employer's perspective, the ones that we speak to, they feel they're missing out in a way. Yes, we all found out how to work remotely through COVID, but those interactions that happen perhaps either side of a Zoom meeting that aren't happening with remote work, we know employers are missing that. And so there's going to continue to be that tug of war between employers and employers, and that flexibility needs to happen both ways. Employers we speak to are interested in micro-credentials and portfolio work, often at the expense of or in addition to lengthy degrees. We've actually had employers tell us that they'd prefer people haven't done a 4 or 5 year degree, but kind of learn, particularly in areas like technology, but learn self-paced and then be able to apply that knowledge. The employers that we speak to also want to reach diversity and inclusion targets. In our market, large employers, whether they be in the public sector, like state government departments, or whether they be in the private sector, like resource and banking and finance companies, they often have published, as in the public domain, targets around diversity and inclusion. And that might look like women in leadership, that might be employment of people with disabilities. And on the whole, in our market, some of those targets are not being met, particularly those around employing people with disability. So as an example, the unemployment rate for autistic people is around 31%. And so significantly higher than the unemployment rate for the general population. And organisations where they've stated those diversity and inclusion targets, are going to be held accountable by shareholders, by the public, to actually reach them. And so the diversity and inclusion managers that I speak with, that our team speaks with, are looking for ideas on how to reach those targets and get more people into work. What COVID has changed. I want to say at the outset that COVID has obviously had a hugely disruptive effect and caused a lot of heartache and death and sickness, and fully kind of acknowledging that. My friends, dear friends in southern India who've lost relatives, and the pandemic was particularly difficult in places like India, and I'm not making light of that in any way when I talk about some of the I guess unforeseen benefits from accessibility. So I just wanted to say that at the outset. But from our perspective, if we look at employment inclusion, we really feel that progress in work flexibility that was years in the making and being spoken about was really adopted in a matter of weeks. So to give you an example about that, in 2018, we were working with a financial services company. We had contractors going in there to do data roles. And we had to get an exemption for a contractor who was an autistic woman who needed to work from home at least part of the time. And it was actually only 1 day a week in a full-time week. But we had to get an exemption for this person to be able to work from home part-time. We think about that now, that's absurd. That we assume that there's going to be a level of flexibility, but only a few years ago, those changes were, seemed like they were decades off. So that progress has led to a benefit for people that have sensory challenges, have mobility challenges, or simply live outside a metropolitan area and want to access jobs that might have traditionally been in major cities. As a result of COVID, Australia shut its borders in around late March 2018, and it was dubbed Fortress Australia. Even Australian citizens couldn't get back into the country. And that led to a 97% drop in skilled migration compared to pre-COVID levels. Those closed borders have only recently, in the last 6 months, been opened up again, but it'll take some time for skilled migration to recover. As a result of those moves from the government, unemployment is at its lowest level in my lifetime, so 3.4%. And that's led to a couple of things. Skill shortages, which I talked about before. It's led to increases in turnover, and it's led to wage pressure for businesses as costs rise and people move jobs for more money. COVID also exposed the limits of traditional recruitment, onboarding, and support, and really pushed organisations that weren't doing things like remote interviews and remote onboarding and remote support of their teams to learn the technology. We all became experts, if we weren't before, in tools like Zoom. Also, through this time of stress and sickness and the constant news cycle, the mental health of existing employees came into greater focus. Many large employers that we worked with already had employee assistance programs. We know that there was an increase in requests for those services through this time. Those organisations that didn't have those services in place quickly got them in place through COVID. So as a summary, I think from an inclusion point of view, the changes, particularly around remote and flexible working, have been a significant benefit, or a silver lining, I guess, in what was a dark time, particularly for people who are neurodivergent and might appreciate a level of autonomy about where they work and also how they work. So what has Exceptional done through all that? So I want to highlight two things before I close. Our training of employers has had to go online. And so we run workshops, whether they be live webinars like we're doing now, or whether they be in-person workshops. But we quickly needed to be able to build resources that people could access anywhere, anytime. We also needed to be able to assess people's potential. So before COVID, a large part of what we did was actually run assessment centres. We'd invite people into our office, either in Sydney or Melbourne, for example, and run multi-day workshops to get an understanding of people's skills in areas like attention to detail and how they solve problems and how they worked in teams. But we couldn't do that anymore. And so just want to share a little bit about what we did do and what we are doing now. So as I said, we provide practical training on neurodiversity, and we really aim to build inclusive teams. And we do that through live webinars, through workshops, and through on-demand courses. And as a starting point, there's a real demand for this level of practical training for managers. If we think back to where I was sharing about what employers want, they want to uncover untapped talent. They want to look after the people that they've got. They want to reach their diversity and inclusion targets, but often they don't know how to do things differently. How do they run a merit-based recruitment process whilst providing a reasonable adjustment for someone that might need the questions in advance, for example? And so we provide that practical training. Often we share from first-person experience and really give people an insight into how to better attract, hire, and manage and retain neurodivergent folk. I'm going to give you a couple of examples here of the training that we do online. So we've rolled this out in the last few months. As you can see there's a number of different little modules. What is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity in the media. We spend a bit of time looking at language. We really want employers to become literate in the language of neurodiversity. And it's not something that they're often comfortable with. And what that can mean is that they don't have conversations, or they're scared of saying the wrong thing. So we spend some time on those basics, and then we go into things like supportive onboarding, recruitment, the role of co-workers, differences between men and women, and how neurodivergent conditions can present. So it's quite comprehensive, and whether it's delivered in a workshop or online, it builds a base level understanding and literacy of neurodiversity that businesses, talent, hiring managers, colleagues can move forward with. As a starting point, we don't work with any organisation unless they've done, in terms of placing people, unless they've done this level of training. We think it's that important that they understand neurodiversity before we start working with them. Here's another example. Each module has actually got a quiz, and we can track how people are gone and send reminders and things like that. So it's a really neat tool. There's some information on our website about it, but really the objective behind this is we need employers to understand different neurodivergent conditions and be better equipped to be inclusive. We know that they're often coming from a point of view of wanting to be inclusive and doing the right thing, and we're really giving them the tools in which to do that. So that's on the employer side. That training really is designed, and it's actually, when we started, it was falsely assumed that the training we were doing was for individuals, for autistic people as examples. But no, the training is actually for employers, because we see that they need to change and be flexible in how they approach things like interviewing and onboarding. On the candidate side, we've spent a lot of time looking at, how do we answer this question? How do we uncover potential? For people that haven't had a 3-year, 4-year degree and then some work experience, how do we know if they can do a job like software testing or accounts payable, for example? So part of the awards we got, things like Google, we actually built out a team of neurodivergent designers, developers, and testers. And we've built our own assessment platform, which helps people demonstrate their skills. Give you a couple of examples here. So this is a number puzzle. Now, this puzzle requires people to place, you literally drag those numbers across in the line, and each of those lines need to add up to the same number. Now, I must admit, this is a little embarrassing for me. With ADHD, numbers are not my strong point. And so, we'll sometimes play these games and these puzzles and different versions of them among the team. And some of the autistic team that we have, they literally can solve these puzzles, even new puzzles, as quickly as their fingers can move. And I'm kind of going line by line, trying to add it all up and almost needing a pencil and a piece of paper to do so. So really what that shows me is, if you give the right environment and the right opportunity, often people that, aren't self-promoters, they're shy, but they just need an opportunity to demonstrate what they can do. This provides such an opportunity. So this puzzle tests things like numeracy. This particular puzzle is a task involving counting a number of items. In this case, it's parked cars from an aerial photograph, and it requires people to kind of think outside the box a little bit and look for cars that might be obscured by trees. And this particular puzzle tests attention to detail, along with other things. And there's different variants of this particular puzzle. But all of these puzzles, and if you want to play your own and have a little look, you can have a play at app.exceptional.io. I'll put the link in the website there in the presentation. All of those puzzles combine to form what we call a skills profile. And so part of the change we've made to the recruitment process is we don't require CVs. And so the reason we don't require CVs is often they're kind of limited in the way that they come to us because people mightn't have had the experience. But also we want to see how people perform in a kind of safe and impartial environment. So we want to give them the opportunity to demonstrate their skills, and we can then benchmark them. We can benchmark them next to people that have gone before them, and we've done about 25,000 assessments so far. Or we can benchmark them for people that are going for similar roles. And we're building AI out now that will match skills profiles and how well people have done in skills like problem solving and numerical reasoning versus people with assessed and placed in those roles and are still in those roles. And so we're getting a measure of success to what does good and great look like as people go through those assessments. So I would encourage you to go on and have a look. You can do the puzzles and yeah, would really appreciate your feedback on that. Both this tool and the training is now available worldwide. So we're talking to partners in Asia, the US, and through Europe about accessing this technology. One to train teams on neuro-inclusion, and the other to get an understanding of candidates who might not do a great job of self-promotion and might not have had a work history that's worth putting on a CV. What other data points can we bring to actually put in front of an employer? This skills profile we use ourselves in our talent business to put in front of employers. And so what's been really pleasing through that process is employers aren't coming back and saying, look, we'd like a CV as well. They're often taking this profile and then seeing candidates, and candidates are getting a job as a result. Our results over the last 3 years have been really encouraging. So we're working across, banking, finance, government, SaaS companies, and resource companies. And the satisfaction rate from candidates in doing our process, we survey everyone, and we actually survey them through the process and then for 12 months after they're placed. The satisfaction rate's 95% in our process. And some of the feedback is we hear things like, finally, I have an opportunity to demonstrate what I can do. I feel like you understand how my mind works, and I'm not having to answer questions about my lack of experience, but you're giving me an opportunity to show what I can do. In addition to that, the retention rate is 92%. You compare that to some industry averages, and it's significantly higher. And that's in part because we spend so much time getting to know each candidate, and we provide post-placement support. So that's really what I wanted to share with you. I'm just really encouraged by what I'm seeing coming out of India, and really pleased to be able to share with you a little bit about what we're doing in our market, and offer some tools that you can make use of. Look, India is as I said before, just a fascinating and diverse country, and there's so much potential and opportunity there for inclusion. So I want to thank the organisers for allowing someone outside India to present today, and I really want to throw open the opportunity for you to contact me or get in contact with Exceptional should you choose. But thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the summit.